Zero Mark here with an event preview for the upcoming Legendary Game of Heroes Commander event, Sweet Vengeance. But first, I have a couple comments about the Night of the Occult event that we just finished up. It was a Slayer event. I actually quite enjoyed the event. I managed to get a fairly complete event deck, and so I was able to do a bunch of damage. And this game is quite a lot of fun to play when you get a full event deck. It's just too bad that event decks cost so many gems to be able to get. But the new thing they added to the Slayer event was these frenzy bosses that showed up every 4 hours and only spawned for 10 minutes. And the first time I came across a frenzy boss, I was hugely disappointed and thought it was horrible because their skills fired every time, so the armor was permanent, and it would take a multi-billion attack and reduce it to just one, and so you couldn't do any damage even with the event deck. And so it was kind of frustrating and a mess. But as I played through the event, I actually started to quite enjoy the frenzy bosses. You had to find some ways around the boss skills. We had to go find some wardens to use for dispel, and it actually made it an interesting challenge. And having them be all of the different affinities meant that some of the older decks and some of the other people in my guild who have decks from previous events were able to do really well against certain frenzy bosses. And so it actually became quite entertaining, and the race against the clock was kind of interesting and made it a little bit exciting. But after the fact, there's been a couple of major complaints. The first one was that timing, that every 4 hours, like I don't know if that's the right amount of time, whether it should be every 6 hours, or there's a suggestion that that each guild be given the choice during the window of when to trigger the frenzy bosses so that you could time it out for your guild so everybody could be there. That's a great idea. Implementation might be a little bit tricky, but that's a great idea. The second one is that there was a whole swath of the game, maybe even 90% of the guilds in the game, that were unable to deal with the frenzy bosses because they were just too powerful. So there's all this talk about scaling the bosses. I think there's a really easy way to do this that you don't have to change a whole heck of a lot and would make the frenzy even more intense and even more fun. What I would suggest is you have 3 boss slots. Have those 3 bosses spawn the first time at level 1. They'd be super easy to kill. So even the weakest guilds could go in and kill the bosses at level 1, and then inside of that 10-minute spawn window, you'd kill it quickly, and new boss would spawn, and the next boss that spawns, just increase the level, increment it by 25 or 50 levels. So next time a level 50 boss shows up, and then a level 100 boss, and eventually you're going to get to the point where you've got higher HP and you've got higher damage requirements, but it's going to be this race through these bosses to get as many as you can in the limited time, but everybody would be able to kill some bosses and keep killing them until they get to the point where their guild is outmatched. It just, that way you'd have everybody having a race. You'd have the more powerful guilds just churning through the low-level bosses so that they get to the higher ones and the higher rewards, and you just scale the rewards based on the level of the boss. That's what they do on all the other bosses. It just seems like it's a natural solution to make it that much more exciting, because now instead of during a half-hour frenzy, my guild was excited if we killed 4 bosses, now you'd be trying to kill 16 or 20, and that's a lot. I don't know, that would be a lot more fun. There'd be a lot more action. You'd have the lower level members of the guild be able to participate by being able to go in and kill those early bosses, and they could be killing those early bosses while the higher up, more powerful members are putting together their teams to kill the higher up bosses, because you don't know what the skills of the frenzy bosses are going to be until they show up. So it would, I think it would be a great way to just change the frenzy bosses to make it more exciting. And it would scale everything, and it would meet, and it would allow for the changes. And then you need to change the rewards, as has been mentioned over and over and over again, but that's a constant theme inside of this game. So let's look at the Sweet Vengeance event coming up this weekend. There's a new Gemfall deck. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm I'm at a loss for words. They changed Overkill in a way that they took the best part of Overkill away and left the part that's not important. This is just boggles my mind that they consistently can be so like just tone deaf. The arena event was a disaster because they didn't listen to or think about how that would work out. And now they're looking at Overkill, and they've taken away the part of Overkill that was good, and the issue with Commander events is that right now you start boss, you buy the free Head Start pack, and you start at level 50. Okay, then you need to get to level 200 before the legendary bosses spawn. And the legendary boss, the first legendary boss that spawns that you kill, gives you 30 million trophies. All the bosses that you've fought from level 50 to level 200 give you total combined like 30 million trophies. So it's basically just a slog to get to the legendary bosses where you can start actually getting some trophies. Because fighting the regular bosses doesn't give you any trophy rewards that matter. So you have to slog through 150 bosses to get to the point where things start mattering. And so that's 150 bosses of just kind of wasted time that feels pointless and just is this drudgery of getting through these bosses to get to level 200 so that you can spawn the legendary bosses. So by putting in the Overkill and allowing you to jump 4 bosses every time you destroy the really easy boss, all of a sudden, instead of slogging through 150 bosses to get from 50 to 200, you're slogging through 50 bosses to get there, or 40 bosses. And then you can get to the legendary bosses and start earning some actual trophies. So the benefit to me of the Overkill was not the fact that you got 4 times the trophies for every time you destroyed some easy boss. It was the fact that you didn't have to fight as many stupid easy bosses to get the ones that were interesting, to get to the legendary bosses that you actually had to battle and you actually had to use a good deck on. And then once you got there, needing to have the Overkill damage actually was not that interesting to me, because you just want to be able to fight through those bosses, and I guess you can put some Overkill in for the people, but then so I mean, it's an interesting way that you have to kind of try to almost kill the boss and then line up a big hit so that you can get a bunch of Overkill afterwards. But like, that was not the point. The point of Overkill, the point that made it useful and made it good, was the fact that you could decrease the slog from 50 to 200. If they wanted to take away the extra stuff after boss level 200, after you get to the legend bosses, that's great. But give me a way to get from 50 to 200 faster than killing 150 garbage bosses. Okay, rant over. So that's the major change to this one. I'm not looking forward to it. There's been a lot of people that have said vocally in lots of the different chats that this is not a good change to the Overkill. We'll see how they deal with Overkill bosses and what those are. I'm interested to see how that works, and then we can maybe talk about how to tweak them and make them better. So let's look at this event deck. This event deck is a rerun of the Gemfall decks. So this is the 4th Gemfall deck, the only one that we don't have. We don't have a dark Gemfall deck yet, but this is a basic Gemfall deck. So the main event hero, start or increase Earth Gemfall by 50 gems, and increase attack on the passive by 6% per 5 Earth Gemfall stacks for 1 turn. So basically, Gemfall decks, you have a main event hero, and you have the Master Collection hero, the X13 hero, that are Gemfall heroes. They increase your Gemfall. Then you have a support hero that is a gem destroyer, but only after attack. So on the attack, there's a gem destruction, and then they can give that to the other heroes on their team with their battle skill, so that on attack you can destroy a bunch of gems. But that's not useful. The timing of that is bad, because you do an attack and then the gems are destroyed, and so then the Gemfall starts, and then it just doesn't work real well. It's not well designed timing wise. So this is a deck where you need the ultra rare, because the ultra rare is the one that destroys all non-earth gems. And so you can do that during the turn, and that allows you to fill the entire board up and start a massive gem fall. And it spawns power gems, and it gives you the heal, and it gives you even more power gems. So this is a deck that you absolutely guaranteed need the ultra rare. If you want this deck to work and you want to use this as an event deck, if you want to use this pretty much at all, you're going to have to chase the ultra rare, and you're going to have to get it because this deck does not work without it. If you have a different green gem destroyer, you can maybe slot that in and maybe get something useful out of it. But really, to make this deck work, you have to have the ultra rare or a green gem destroyer. Okay, I ran through that pretty quick because I think it'll be useful to, or interesting, more interesting to compare the recent Gemfall decks to see how they line up and see how this one kind of differs from the last ones in terms of all of the numbers. So I put together a couple of pictures that'll show that'll compare these past three Gemfall decks. So let's take a look at those. So here on the left we have the red Gemfall deck that was from a Slayer event. In the center we have the light Gemfall deck that was from the Arena event, the infamous horrible mage deck. And on the right we have the card from the new deck for this current upcoming event. You can see the differences between the two. I've highlighted them at the bottom. You got 40 gems from the red deck, you got 20 gems from the light deck, and now you're getting 50 gems into your gem fall from the new green deck. So those 50 gems will stack with the others and get you a huge, massive combination, which will take forever to fall and take forever to fall and take forever to fall. But that's okay because this is a commander event, so you're not in the same kind of speed rush that you are during a Slayer event. So the problem with the earlier red deck was that it was a Slayer event, so it took too long, so people complained. So they decided to make the quick fall deck in the Arena event. But you can see that all they did was just nerf the damage it did by taking the power gems from, or not the power gems, the gem fall from 40 to 20. Now they've upped it to 50, so they've juiced that even more. And then they've also changed the attack boost. The attack boost before was 1%. For every 5 gemfall stacks. So if you had 150 gemfall stacks, you got 1% for every 5, so you'd get a 30% attack boost. Now you're getting 6% for every 5, so that means that you're getting, if you have 150 gemfall stacks, that would be 3 event cards, you're getting 180% attack boost. To put that in perspective, the X13 from the last Night of the Occult event gave 150% attack boost. So this is a decent attack boost now. So they've increased the number of gems in the gem fall, they've increased the attack boost, so they've increased the damage significantly for the event card. The Master Collection Hero, the X13, as usual, is an upgraded version of the main event card. So in the red Gemfall deck, you went from 40 to 50 gems, and your attack boost went from 1% to 3%. In the new deck, you go from 50 to 60 gems added to the gem fall, and your attack boost goes from 6% to 10%. So if you have 150 gems in your gem fall, so that'd be 3 event cards, you get 300% attack boost from the X13 hero. So you get a 300% and a 180% from the main event card, 300% from the X13. In the last Slayer event, it was 100 and 150. So these are decent attack boosts for this deck. The ultra rare hero also got a boost this time around. It went from 2 power gem 3s plus 2 per 100 to 2 power gem 4s plus 2 per 100. You don't have the revive that the red gemfall deck had. You have the extra power gems and the heal added like they had in the quickfall deck. So this ultra rare destroys the gems, but then it also boosts with power gem 4s plus 2 per 100 intensity. So you have to build intensity to get those extra power gems. The heal down at the bottom is per gemfall stack. So big gemfall stack gives you a big heal and gives you additional power gem 1s there. So at 300 intensity, you'd be putting 8 power gem 4s on the board. If you have a gem fall of 160, you'd be putting about 21 power gem 1s on the board. So the ultra rare card is going to get you a lot of power gems after the destruction. So it's going to destroy all the non-green gems, and then it's going to fill the board up with power gems, and then you'll have the gem fall falling after that, so you get a big combo, and then you get a big base to do the damage off of. And that's how you get big damage in this deck. So the ultra rare here are hugely, hugely, hugely important in building this deck. So we've seen with this new green Gemfall deck that they're upping the gems in the Gemfall, they're upping the power gems, they're upping the damage percentage. They've really kind of juiced this deck. It'll do good damage. It'll be a little bit slower, so not maybe the greatest Slayer deck, but this is a Commander event, so should be great for that. The only caveat is you need the ultra rare for this deck to work. You can probably get away in this deck with 1 ultra rare and 4 event or X13 heroes. That's going to totally maximize your Gemfall, get a huge Gemfall, which gives you huge bonuses on the healing, gets you huge bonuses on the attack bonuses. And then if you have the ultra rare and you have the intensity built up, you can get lots of power gems in there too. So overall, pretty good deck, but you got to be willing to chase the ultra rare if you want to go after it. Have fun playing Legendary Game of Heroes this weekend. Until next time.